Well, joining me now from our Westminster studios is the former Schools Minister Nick Gibb MP and David Sheppard, who's head teacher of Charter School in London. Gentlemen, it's great to have you both on the programme tonight. Nick Gibb, let's start with you. I mean, this is Michael Gove's fourth resit at revamping GCSEs. Will his plans pass this time?
Yes, there was broad support for his proposals in the House of Commons today from both Labour and the government benches, so I think they will go forward. And they are very important. It is important that we raise standards in our exam system. We need to ensure that school leavers are ready to face a very challenging global jobs market, and this will be one part of that package of education reform.
OK, so support from government. David Sheppard, you're at the coalface. Are teachers going to support these plans?
I think it's very difficult to say that people aren't going to support higher standards. The question is whether this is, in fact, the right way of doing it, whether this fourth attempt has actually got the mix right. And obviously, we're very concerned that terminal exams will result in a radical narrowing of what you can test and the time in which you can test it.
What do you say to that, Nick Gibb?
Well, what is happening now is that students are spending a huge amount of time in this resit culture where they're taking these different modules, these small bite-sized pieces of the GCSE, they're taking it a year early, they're retaking it again once they've banked that grade to try and get a higher grade, and a huge amount of time that should be devoted to learning and being taught the subject is being wasted, I think, on too many exams. And the same with the controlled assessment. This again takes up a vast amount of teachers' time that could be better spent actually teaching the children the knowledge in the first place.
So the structure's wrong, David Sheppard?
Qualifications have to be ladders to success. Students need real assessment, real accountability, so that they feel that their development and their understanding is being properly valued. Teaching and assessment are integrated. To save all the assessment, the formal assessment, right to the very end is a significant mistake. Coursework, although there are clear ways in which you can improve it, hasn't been an unmitigated disaster. It's enabled lots of people, and it's been particularly responsible for the improvement, say, of girls and young women in assessment, and has given them real opportunities for success over the last 20 years.
And there are many head teachers, I have to say, and teachers, Nick Gibb, who don't support the government, who say, you know, having just exams at the end is not a fair assessment for every pupil. The pupils who struggle a little bit are going to really struggle with this new system.
Well, I think that argument is overstated. If you have exams, proper exams in secondary school at the end of every year, the end of year 7, year 8, year 9, pupils are used to taking these kind of public high-pressure exams by the time they reach the GCSE level. So I don't really buy that argument. And they can, of course, retake it a year later if they do have a bad day on the exam day. What is important is just to get rid of this culture of resits. And the other important reform that's being introduced is to have open-ended questions that require essay-style questions, because what employers are complaining about is that school leavers and graduates are unable to write proper reports. They just don't have that basic skill, and 42% of the CBI's membership are saying they're having to put on remedial courses for many of their new employees, and that has to stop if we're going to compete.
Is that a fair point?
Well, it's interesting because the CBI actually has been very complimentary about both GCSEs and A-levels, and have talked very positively about the work that schools are doing. I think one of the significant missed opportunities here is that here we are in the 21st century, preparing students for the next 30 years, and yet the mechanisms of assessment look back to the 1950s. They've got technology of assessment now, so that, for instance, you can answer questions online and the test gets harder. We've had none of this kind of engagement with the new technology of the new world, preparing people from the future. What we've had is assessment that looks back to when I was at school.
And that's a very good point, isn't it, Nick Gibb? I mean, how on earth are employers going to be able to assess the difference between a pupil from Wales and people from England, because all the grades are going to be different now?
Well, I hope Wales will see sense and will join in these reforms, because the Welsh education system is falling faster in the international league tables than this country has been over the last few years. So I think they do need to take the same kind of action that we're taking in this country.
OK. We have to wrap it up there, but actually, just before you go, Nick Gibb, I know that Michael Gove wants to change the English syllabus. So I was wondering what your favourite English romantic poet was.
My favourite English... I do like Wordsworth, I have to say, on Westminster Bridge. It was one of my favourite poems by Wordsworth.
And your favourite 19th century novelist?
I would say Charles Dickens probably. It's a cliche, I suppose, but I do like Charles Dickens. Great Expectations, my favourite novel.
The Prelude is the great Wordsworth poem.
Yes.
I'm not surprised that a short poem was chosen.
10 out of 10 from both of you. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.